Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. And guys, maybe. All right. Okay. This has been going on.
Rocking them Sauconys.
That is a legit belly laugh out of Nick Wright.
Not one, not two,
I have
but
to
three.
say,
Blown 3-1 lead for Doc.
Yes. Nick, to which I say, maybe the Clippers needed that rah-rah speech after all yesterday that was so easily dismissed.
You should have given it to him. It wouldn't have gone any worse if Jenna was on the sidelines, I promise you.
Let us get to why Nick is full of belly laughs this morning. Game 7, Clippers Nuggets, and the Clippers trying to avoid a total meltdown after once again being up 3-1 in a series. They needed Kawhi, they needed PG, they needed both to come up big, and that never happened. Both had brutal shooting nights once again. Kawhi just 14 points on 6 of 22 from the field. Paul George, 10 points on 4 of 16 shooting. We had, guys, we talked about it. We had rumors of poor chemistry all season long. We had rumors of fatigue during the playoffs. And last night it all caught up to them. A shocking exit for Kawhi and the Clippers. Maybe not shocking for Nick. After, what did they do? They pushed all their chips in this offseason. So with that, the Denver Nuggets move on to face the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Here is Paul George after the game.
Fact of the matter is we didn't live up to that expectation. But I think internally we've always felt this is not a championship or bust year for us. We can only get better the longer we stay together and the more we're around each other. The more chemistry for this group, the better. I think that's really the tale of the tape of the season. We just didn't have enough time together.
Nick, your corner, buddy, your prediction. You saw this coming from a mile away. B. Marsh, you did as well. But, Nick, let me start with you. What'd you make of what happened last night?
Listen, nobody likes someone to gloat. Nobody likes someone to say, I told you so. So this really does pain me. But I told you so. I warned America all year about these front-running frauds. And everyone said, oh, Chris Broussard, young analyst Nick Wright, picking with his heart instead of his head. Oh, Nick, you're just scared of the Clippers because of LeBron. Scared of the Clippers? Scared of who? Way off P? And Doc Rivers' abysmal playoff record when he's a favorite? What am I scared of? Listen, Brandon, you'd been here a week and saw the Clippers. We're like, wait, they're not better than the Nuggets? At the beginning of the year, I tried to tell America, Brandon, this is a oddly configured roster, a bunch of one-way players. Patrick Beverley, great on defense, bad on offense. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, the opposite, great on offense, bad on defense. They had no chemistry. They didn't respect the process. Their second best guy is someone who has never stepped up in the biggest playoff moments, and their best guy, for the first time in his career, was playing in a series where if he loses it, we are going to be scrutinizing him in a way he's not familiar with, and the weight of those expectations took him out. And then who did they have to turn to, Brandon? Doc Rivers, who there aren't many unbreakable records in sports, but I will wager my entire net worth, plus yours, Brandon, which is quite more than mine, that this record will never be broken. Doc Rivers, the first coach to ever blow 3 3-1 leads, and in fact, he's blown a 3-1 lead in every decade. Hey, you want the second Bush administration blowing 3-1 lead? No problem. The Obama administration blowing a 3-1 lead? Doc Rivers your guy. How about the Trump administration? Doc Rivers still your guy. Doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter what year it is. You need a 3-1 lead blown, you know who to call. So, listen, is this a victory lap for me, Brandon? It is. Am I surprised? No, of course not.
But could it be luck, Nick?
And am I delighted? Go ahead, yeah, please.
Luck? Could it be luck, though? Like, how do you call this? How do you call this at the beginning of the year? Like, I just don't get it. No one can call this the way you did.
Because the roster didn't make, because Brennan, I'll be very quick here, because the roster didn't make sense. You got to get through LeBron and Anthony Davis. They never even got there. And you don't have a rim protector. You have a bunch of guys who act like they've won something when only one of them has ever won anything, and he's damn near silent as far as a leadership perspective. And even if you didn't see it in the preseason, once the year started and Kawhi is asking for days off before Halloween and they are already acting like they're the defending champs, to me, the writing was on the wall all year long, Brandon.
Yeah, well, I think the Clippers should be lucky that they dominated the way they did and they actually got to a Game 7, and that sounds ridiculous, thinking that they were up 3-1. Coming into this series, I thought that the Nuggets were the better team. I thought they didn't have an answer for Jokic. You can see how they played him. You know, they tried to take him out. They tried to trap him. They tried to double him, leaving everyone else wide open. And the guys that were supposed to hit the shots in the big moments did. Millsap played big in Game 2, Game 6, Game 7. Game 5, Game 6. He was okay in Game 7. You had Porter come in and spark the team when he needed to spark the team when they had nothing. Harris and Grant came in and made some big plays. Did they play lights out? No. But when you have Jokic and you have no answer for Jokic, that makes it easy for everyone else on the court. I thought they did a tremendous job against Murray coming into this series. They basically said, we're going to take Jokic out and we're going to take Murray out, and everyone else has to beat us. What happened last night?
And they did.
They literally said, okay. Last night they literally said, Murray, you have to beat us. And he did. And this is a guy that showed immaturity throughout this series. He showed that he was the one that wasn't in condition. I don't know what Doc is talking about. You know, you really have to peel back the layers. But Murray and the Denver Nuggets like the team that needed to get in shape a little bit more. So, Wiles, I don't know how you saw this, but when you really look at this series, this is not about the Clippers. This is really about this matchup nightmare. When you have shooters around Jokic, they could be any team, any given night.
Well, Brandon, I think it was about belief. And if you go on the internet, you'll see a long list of compilations of people who didn't believe in the Nuggets and only believed in the Clippers. And Jamal Murray called him out during his press conference. He said people ranging from Shaq to poor Zach Lowe. But there was one person, Jenna, one person that very early on put their neck out, and he is the seer of seers, the prognosticator of prognosticators, the Puxatani Phil of First Things First. Our guy, Nick Wright, called it. Take a listen.
Have the Denver Nuggets beat the Los Angeles Clippers, the unbeatable Clippers, who we don't know if Montrezl Harrell's in any type of shape. You've got, by the way, Broussard with a little kind of takes working against each other. Kawhi is so great. How can you ever pick against Kawhi? By the way, the team Kawhi left, they're making the finals. So wait, did he carry them the whole time, or were they awesome? So did he get too much credit? I'm confused. But regardless, the emergence of Michael Porter Jr., no one on the Clippers to deal with Nikola Jokic, the Nuggets getting Jamal Murray back, all those reasons. That's why, unfortunately, as much as we would all love to see it, I don't think we're going to get the battle for Los Angeles, because I think the Nuggets are going to step in the way.
Wow. Cheers, buddy.
Wow.
So let me just say, since you were very kind there, Wilds, and gave me credit for the prediction, I would like to make one more prediction. And I know we're going to talk about this all morning, Jenna, so I'll be quicker and we can get to Paul George's comments later. One more prediction. Do you remember the asterisk talk that was very big during the seat right around the time the NBA announced it was coming back, and then went away entirely when it looked like the Lakers had a tough first-round matchup, a tough second-round matchup, the Clippers were going to roll through the Nuggets? Nobody, check Google Trends for the word asterisk. It's gone away over the last 20 days. It's coming back today or tomorrow. All the folks who've been laying in the weeds like, what am I going to do if LeBron wins? What am I going to do when he wins his 4th title? What am I going to do when he does it with no home games? That asterisk card that they put in their pocket, which they weren't going to play if Kawhi won, oh, that big joker's coming out on the table by 11:35 a.m. Eastern today at the latest. Mark your watch to it, Jenna.
Clippers are on their way home. The Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2009. when they played the Lakers last time. All right, take a turn. Got to talk a little football on the other side. Coming up, could Odell Beckham Jr. already be on his way out of Cleveland? He just got there. Talking Browns next. First things first. This might be my victory lap, Nick. Not Odell, but being right on the
Week
Browns.
one.
Start your Saturday strong, 10 a.m. Eastern with the Big Noon Kickoff Show, followed by the Big Noon Game of the Week. It is Houston taking on Baylor. Only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Time now for four things first. Collection of things we saw, we love. Brandon, you're pumped for Nuggets Lakers now.
OMG. Nick, you called this August 17th, 2019. I don't know how you did it, man, but that was genius. But look, Nuggets win Game 7, Clippers collapse, and our guy, Nick Wright, is the boy wonder right here on this show.
Oh, you're going to make me blush, Brandon. You're going to make me blush.
Kevin,
really.
Tatum time for you?
Tatum time. All right, so this was the great play that they drew up at the end of regulation. There's 22 seconds left on the clock in a tie game. You shoot a 27-foot jump shot. After the game, Tatum and Brad Stevens like, we liked it. We got what we could get. I don't think they're lying, but the actions of Tatum here prove that he wasn't satisfied with that earlier jumper. I think he knew that he was too hesitant. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go in the exact opposite direction and dunk on Bam's head. It didn't work out, but here's a very Nick Wright take for you. I loved it, and this bodes well for the Celtics that he's this aggressive, even though it got blocked. It's a great move by Tatum. Celtics in 6.
Nick, you like this bucket from the claw.
Yeah, listen, everyone's going to bang on Kawhi today, so I think it's important we show all of his second-half hoops. There it is. That's it. Just that one. That's the one second-half hoop. 1 for 11. Now, if we want it, we don't have enough time to know. It was just the one shot again and again. We don't have enough time to show all of his second-half misses in a game where his team, had a double-digit lead for the third straight game and blew a 3-1 lead, and they didn't get out of the second round, even though he owns L.A. now. But I want to, not many shows in America are going to give you the full Kawhi second-half highlight reel, probably because it's one shot long and it ended in the opening moments of the third quarter. But I want to be fair. I'm nothing if not fair to Kawhi Leonard, so I wanted to make sure we got that out there, Jenna.
Hey, guys, what do we all have in common? We all have a 6-year-old kid. You know who else has a 6-year-old kid? The parents of this little one right here. 6 years old. Walking it. Look at number 20. What just happened to me? That kid is 6 years old.
No way he's
playing
6.
his little Pop Warner football. Yes, he is. He is a man among little boys. You know that the other parents of the other kids are like, is it too late to sign little Jimmy up for soccer? At this point, you know what it reminds me of, though? You know what it reminds me of? 1971, 13-year-old Andy Reid, among other little teenagers getting ready for the pass, punt, and kick competition. Andy Reid, age 13, a man among boys. Nick can't get enough of it. I got to whip it out every chance I can get. Look, he's now Super Bowl winning Andy Reid. Let's stick with football now. As we head into week 2 of the NFL season, we find ourselves already talking about dysfunction on the Cleveland Browns. Following a clear disconnect between Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield on Sunday, a report that the Browns were actually shopping their star wideout and that he isn't the problem, implying Baker may be the issue here. Also being floated from a Browns beat reporter, the team should let Odell seek a trade if they're going to remain committed to their quarterback. So there's a ton to unpack here. I say all that understanding, Brandon, it has only been 1 week, but clearly it resonated enough that there are reports out there of things to come. Would it be smart for the Browns to let Odell seek a trade, in your opinion?
I'm gonna try not to overreact here and not go on a rant, right? I said it all yesterday. It's week 1. People, please calm down and stop overreacting. Let's get to October and let's see if this is still the situation. But right now, we need to focus on the fundamentals. I just need to really calm down right now because this is a sensitive topic for me when we talk about the wide receiver position and getting these guys involved in early. You heard Odell say it yesterday. All I want is to get involved early. He's almost like a basketball player. You got to get these guys in rhythm. Not every receiver is like this. Some receivers you can put on the sideline or you can put him out there and he doesn't touch the ball until the fourth quarter and he'll be ready. But a guy like Odell, this is a guy that if you can throw him a screen, if you can throw him a bubble behind the line of scrimmage, a one-step slant, a smoke route, which is a one-step hitch, this is someone that can change the energy not only in your team, in your locker room, but in the entire city. So if I am the Cleveland Browns, I don't overreact here. I don't go outside of myself and try to recreate offense. All I do is throw this guy the ball early. Within the first 15 plays, he should have 2 or 3 targets and at least 2 catches.
And Brandon,
go ahead, Jenna. You want to jump in there?
I was just going to jump in and then I'll send it to Nick. I would think that someone like Baker Mayfield, who already spent a whole season with Odell, knows him on the field and off the field, would know that. Shouldn't your quarterback know what you need as a wide receiver?
No, this is a philosophy.
We got to get him the ball early.
No, this is about. You know, this is about approach. Everybody's approach is different, and this is why, like, I really have to calm my emotions on this topic because we overthink this. It's simple football. Sometimes we put our offense and our approach and our process and our reads over just great players. This is a guy, just get him the ball. I don't care if you give him a jet sweep. I don't care if you give him a reverse. I don't care if you put him on punt return, kickoff return. Just get the guy the ball. This is one of the best players, not only on your team, but in the National Football League. He is probably the most athletic player that this game has seen in a very long time. So a lot of times we're trying to take shots down the field, 20-yard in cuts, go routes, post, Nick, and the reality is it's just like, just throw it out there. It's an extended run, right? That's what the Denver Broncos did for me. That's what Chan Gailey and Ryan Fitzpatrick did for me with the Jets. And I just went for 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns.
And to that point, and in response to Jenna's question about, can't Baker just essentially do this? The first 15 plays are scripted. Like, this is, if there is ever a time when you can say we are getting this person involved, it is to start a game. On a potential game-winning drive or something, it's totally different. But at the very beginning of the game, you can get someone involved. Now, listen, to my friends in Cleveland, I want to make you feel a little bit better because I know it feels like after the Ravens kick your teeth in, it's been 15 years since you've won a season opener. It seems like it couldn't be worse. I'm here to tell you, to the Cleveland Brown fans, it could be worse. You could wake up this morning Los Angeles Clipper fans. So I promise you there is always a brighter side to a story. With that said, there has never been a team that needs a Thursday night game more than this Cleveland team. They play the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow. They play Washington the following week. I'm not saying the Odell Baker combination is definitely going to work, Jenna. I think we have 17 games of evidence thus far that the results are mixed at best. But you played the second best team, and some would say the best team, in all of football in week 1. Don't overreact to any week 1 game, but particularly that week 1 game. You'll beat the Bengals tomorrow. If you beat Washington a week and a half from now, and then this feels like it was all foolishness. Now, Jenna, if they're 0-3 after playing the Bengals in Washington, then everything is on the board. Then you do open up potentially trading Odell or making major systemic changes because obviously you're not changing the coach. They just hired him. But hold a beat for a moment, Jenna, would be my advice.
But let's just ride the rumor out, though, for a second here to see if Odell were to be traded, where he would go. Our friends over at Fox Bet, boy, they wasted no time opining on Odell's next team. They've got the Patriots Wilds as the favorites to trade for the star receiver, followed by, if you're interested, the Niners, the Eagles, the Packers, and the Raiders. But, Kevin, your Patriots, once again at the top of the list with a quarterback OBJ likes and knows. What do you think?
I mean, color me shocked, Jenna. My goodness, the rich get richer, and Odell Beckham says all he cares about is winning. Perhaps going with the winningest coach in the NFL would be a good idea. If only there was a little bit of a tape that we had of Odell saying he loved Bill Belichick. Oh, yes, with old Victor Cruz and Cam Newton said, all he does, he wants to win, and his eyes light up, and he's got the big winter jacket on in the summer. Nick, I would be very nervous if I were you, if one of your favorite players is already there and we get another one, and I know you'd be like, it's not going to work. You know, the Patriots, they're cash strapped, right? No, not anymore. We've almost got $26 million, everybody.
Yeah, no,
Bill Belichick's
got the money.
$26 million.
It's not a good situation.
Oh, Brandon,
it's not
make
a
me
good
feel better.
situation. It's not a good.
Tell me why it wouldn't work, Brandon, please.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. I remember being in the locker room with Odell and us talking through different scenarios when he knew, the writing was on the wall for him to move on from the Giants. And I will say this: he respects Bill Belichick. He loves Bill Belichick. He loves the idea. He loved the idea of playing for the Patriots. But that's when Tom Brady was there. And I know he loves Cam Newton, and they have a great friendship. But the New England Patriots just showed you their recipe for winning games. And I don't think that's where Odell fits in best. Going into a situation where you're essentially a tight end, you're going to be blocking a lot because they're going to run the ball down the team's throat. You saw what they did. I do think every single week will be a different game plan, but you're literally going to turn into Hollywood Brown for the Baltimore Ravens. There'll be some games where you'll have 6, 7 catches, 150, 160 yards, maybe 1 touchdown. But then there's going to be games where they're going to ask you to block a lot for the jet sweep, for the option, and you may have 2 or 3 catches. And I don't see Odell fitting in there. Now, I know there's other teams out there, the 49ers, even Philly, who I like, but if I'm Odell, I'm sitting back and saying, man, this is my career. This is do or die. Where do I fit in best? Where is there a superstar quarterback that I could potentially grow with for the rest of my career? And I know this team doesn't have the ammo to get it done, but if I am Odell Beckham Jr. and if I'm in his camp, I'm saying, wow, the Houston Texans, they need a big play receiver. D-Hop is out there on the West Coast. Let's figure this out. Is there players for players that we can trade? So I really like that situation for Odell, but it's almost impossible to get him there. But again, we have to wait, to Nick's point. Wait until October and let's see what happens. Right now, it's all an overreaction. It's week 1. You have some really good teams coming up on this schedule where Odell and this team can get back on track.
Brandon,
right,
quick question before we go. Can I ask one more question,
Go
Jenna?
ahead.
One quick. It'll be fast. If
no, played it on you. Played him off. Played him off the set.
We'll get back to you.
More Clippers talk.
We'll get
That's
back
right.
to you.
I demanded it.
Clippers
More
on the other
Clippers
side. Back after this.
Yeah.
I did not roll that video.
Today's the Clippers day.
Back here with Antoine Walker talking Game 7, Clippers Nuggets. But let's face it, Twan, it felt like it was headed the Nuggets' way from the get-go. The game, much like the series, just nothing left in the tank for this Clippers team. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both had brutal shooting nights, combining for just 24 points. I mean, look, we saw it. Clippers pushed all their chips in this offseason. They had 3 chances to close Denver out. They couldn't get it done. So now the Denver Nuggets are moving on to face the Lakers in the conference finals. Here is Paul George after the game.
Fact of the matter is we didn't live up to that expectation. But I think internally we've always felt this is not a championship or bust year for us. We can only get better the longer we stay together and the more we're around each other. The more chemistry for this group, the better. I think that's really the tell of the tape of the season. We just didn't have enough time together.
All right, Antoine, how surprised were you by what you said? You're laughing the same way we opened the show. Were you a little bit surprised by what happened? They did blow a 3-1 series lead.
I mean, obviously I was stunned to blow a 3-1 lead. But it's a number of things that play along to why I was stunned. One, just starting from being up 3-1. 2, you have arguably the top 15 players in the league. You have one game you need to win. You got one of the best coaches in the league, and you couldn't muster up one win. really bothers me when the expectations is championship. But I kind of go back to the beginning of when the bubble started. Obviously, we know Montrezl Harrell had a family situation he had to deal with. Lou Williams' situation when he left the bubble, dealing with a family situation. Nobody really ready to go. The focus was not where it needed to be, and it kind of just carried over throughout the whole bubble situation. The inconsistent play, just never really seen a championship-level performance from the Clippers, none during the playoffs. And obviously we saw them struggle against the Dallas Mavericks when the Mavericks took them 6 games. So just not prepared. I'm stunned. I was actually shocked to see this, to come back from 3-1. You got to tip your hat and give all the credit to the Denver Nuggets for what they've been able to accomplish in the playoffs. But when you have 2 of the top 15 players on your roster and 2 guys that supposed to be able to get it done, 2 supposed to be great perimeter defenders, and they both did not show up in Game 7, you have to worry about that, and you have to worry about the future of the Clippers right now, because as much as Paul George said they didn't want to lock in for this year, they gave up valuable assets for you to join this team. They didn't get it so you can build for 4 or 5 years. Kawhi Leonard signed for 3 years, well, technically only 2 years, and 1 is a player option to be if he could be a free agent again. So you guys wanted to win this year. This team was built for that. And not to talk about the host of free agents that you got coming up. That's this summer. Montrezl Harrell. Obviously, Morris is going to be a free agent. Patrick Patterson and Patrick Patterson. So you got valuable pieces that's not going to be a part of your team, because they can actually get, they can make some money this winter, this fall, whenever the free agency starts.
Well, Antoine, the post-game quotes were an outrage, an utter and total outrage, and affront to anyone that's been paying attention. Start with Paul George, the one we said. We never viewed it was championship or bust. Your opening press conference back in your opening press conference and right before the bubble started, June of 2020, you said we view this as a championship season. You traded away a young core piece in SGA, 6 future first-round picks for guys who signed 2-year contracts. Of course it was championship or bust. Certainly wasn't to get 1 round further than you got last year when you had no all-stars on your roster by the time the playoffs rolled around. That's the first quote that was outrageous. Doc Rivers saying we never really got our chemistry to it. Well, hey, Doc, that's what the money's for as a head coach. That's where you might have to tell your star players, no, I'm not giving you a day off before Halloween hits. And you got anonymous Clippers or people, either coaches or players, saying to Mark Spears after the game they didn't have their wind, that they were exhausted. You were the most rested team ever. There was a 4-month break during the season. The hell are you talking about? And this idea, listen, Doc says after the game, Brandon, it's a chemistry issue. It's first year together. You were up 15 points in Game 5 in the second half, 19 points in Game 6 in the second half, and 7 points in Game 7 in the second half. You can't blame it on chemistry when you just folded at the end of these games. The quotes are ridiculous. The revisionist history is ridiculous. And the only thing more ridiculous than those, Brandon, is their approach all year, which is that of a defending champ, that of a dynastic team when they ain't won a damn thing. That you don't always get what you deserve in life. But this Clippers team, Brandon, got exactly what they deserved.
Yeah, Nick, I share that outrage, buddy. As a former player, and Antoine, maybe you can speak to this a little bit differently than I can because you're a basketball player. And sometimes the personalities are a little different. But when you don't want to hear this coming out of Paul George's mouth. Like, what do you mean this wasn't a championship year or this wasn't championship or bust? When you look around as a player, you're like, oh, the Golden State Warriors, they're depleted. And then you look around, you say, oh, the Lakers, they're in the same boat as us. They're trying to build chemistry, so that's out of the window. And then you go over to the East, and all I hear from all these experts in the NBA is the East is weak. So when you think about it, if you really make it out of the West, You're the champion. So I don't understand this mindset. I don't understand this mentality. So, Toy, maybe you can speak to it a little bit differently than me because you won some championships. You've been able to be the top dog on one team and then a role player on another when you played with Shaq and D. Wade and you had to figure out how to fit in and built that chemistry. So I don't understand this coming from Paul George's mouth.
Well, that's a great point, Brandon. And I think where he's wrong at is I look at two teams that put teams together to win championships, the Lakers and the Clippers. And I was a part of a team just like both of these teams. When you think about the team when we won it in 2006, myself, James Posey, Gary Payton, Jason Williams, we all joined Shaq, D. Wade, and Udonis. And the whole goal was to win a championship. Wasn't about regular season. We didn't have a great regular season. We won 52 games. We was a 2 seed. We didn't have the greatest season of anybody in the league. We didn't win 65 games, but the goal was to win a championship. And that's what we focused in on. Everybody sacrificed to do what they need to do to be ready come playoff time to win a championship. If you look at this Clippers team, it was not that type of focus. All season long was about making sure Kawhi Leonard gets his rest. Then obviously we had the pandemic. They go in the bubble. Lou Williams. You have all these different distractions on this team throughout. And if I'm not mistaken, they were actually one of the teams that did not want to play possibly. So you got to think about where their head was at about winning the championship. It's very difficult to win a championship if all 15 guys do not buy in. And this team did not buy in. And it starts from up top. It starts from Doc Rivers. I played for Stan Van Gundy. He coached us 20 games. Pat Riley came down after we were 10-10 start and said, you're not going to be the coach for this team. I got to get some discipline on this team. And he came in and put the hammer down on us. It wasn't pretty, but it led to a championship. That's the same thing that could have happened for the Clippers. Wow. I'm not saying they could have beat the Lakers, but you have to take that approach when you're talking about winning the championship. And they didn't have a championship mentality. And I don't see how it's going to change overnight.
So Antoine, are you saying, we know that Steve Ballmer and Doc have a very close relationship. Are you saying that that relationship could be fractured because of this loss, that you would move on from Doc?
Well, I'm going to put it like this. I saw Nate McMillan get fired. I saw Brent Brown get fired. I saw Mike D'Antoni not get picked up. Those coaches they underachieve. Doc Rivers has underachieved for the Los Angeles Clippers. They have not been to a Western Conference Finals. They've had a ton of talent. I know they've had some couple injuries in the past, but they've had a ton of talent, and he hasn't got over the hump. Obviously, he's a championship coach. He's well-respected in the league, but it's just like every other coach. He has not got over the hump, and they haven't had the same talent. So you got to start from the top and work your way down. You can't continue to give them an excuse.
Listen, everyone respects Doc as a man, but the resume is getting really rough. There is a great clip floating around Twitter this morning of Phil Jackson in the NBA Finals in 2010, a series Doc didn't lead 3-2, or didn't lead 3-1, but did lead 3-2 and ended up losing. Of Phil Jackson saying to the Lakers, this team knows how to lose. They know how to blow fourth quarter leads. That team was coached by Doc Rivers. Tracy McGrady up 3-1 in, what was it, 05, 03 it was. They lose that series, coached by Doc. Famously, obviously, CP3 and Blake in 2015 against a good but far from great Rockets team. They blow a 3-1 lead. Now this team blows a 3-1 lead. Doc Rivers has lost 8 Game 7s in his career. No one else has lost more than 5. His record in series-clinching games is an impossible 14-27, the worst in league history by a mile.
Wow.
It is possible that while Doc Rivers is beloved and respected, that there is something that happens to his teams, no matter what team he's coaching, unless Kevin Garnett is there to save the day, that in the biggest spots, they fold. Because, Jenna, I don't know how many people noticed it last night, but I was confident in the Nuggets all series. But the moment I knew they were going to win was when I saw Reggie Jackson check into the game in the third quarter. And I said, oh, okay, they've panicked. Like, that's Reggie Jackson's music. They panicked, and they had no answers throughout the series. That's on the coach, Jenna.
And by the way, Lou Williams after the game said, hey, I know we had the talent to go out and do this. We just didn't have the chemistry. And that, again, falls under Doc Rivers. We'll have much more on this game coming up. Talk a little football on the other side. Michael Thomas's ankle injury. What does it mean for the NFC South title race? That's next. First things first. Sunday on Fox, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys in their home opener against Matty Ryan and the Falcons. Or you may say Jimmy G and the 49ers. They take on the Jets. All the NFL action kicking off 1 Eastern. Check local listings for the games in your area, or you can watch it on the Fox Sports app. Back here with our guy Brian Westbrook, and some bad news for the New Orleans Saints. All-pro receiver Michael Thomas is going to be sidelined for at least a couple weeks with a high ankle injury. He injured the ankle while blocking on this run play with under 2 minutes left, and the win pretty much sealed. Why was he in the game? To be discussed. Brian, you think the Saints can stay atop the NFC South if Michael Thomas is sidelined as predicted for several weeks?
You know what, Jenna? This may not be a popular take, but I think it's absolutely true. You know, we know how important Michael Thomas is to that Saints offense. We know what he can bring. We know what he's done over the course of the last couple of years, record-breaking type of numbers. But I think the Saints, out of all the teams in the NFL, are set up to be able to win without this type of receiver, one of the top 2 receivers in the game. And here's the reason why. You have a Hall of Fame head coach in Sean Payton. His ability to scheme guys open, his ability to make sure that the play design can get guys open, get them in space, is second to none in the NFL. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Drew Brees, and of course, he's not the same guy that he was 5 years ago, but he still can find the open receiver. He still can find the way to get the ball down the field, and it may not be as far down the field, but he still can get the ball to the guys in space where they need to get him to. Alvin Kamara is one of the best combo backs in the league. His ability to run the football, but more importantly in this situation, when you lose Michael Thomas, now he has the ability and the options to go out there and line up in the receiver position and catch more balls. So I expect his targets to go up. That means Latavius Murray is going to have to play a role in the run game. Of course, you have Emmanuel Sanders, who, in my opinion, in the slot and even outside, is one of the quickest players in the NFL. You can find a way to get him open. And Jared Cook, who had the 5 receptions, 80 yards this past game. I just think that they have an offensive a group with the weapons that can find a way to win in this NFC South, even without Michael Thomas. As talented as he is, they can find a way to win.
I strongly disagree. Any other team, that would be a perfect take, and you're dead on. But not this team. They're not set up like this. And I want to go back to, by the draft. Around the draft time, there was a question asked about the Saints and how awesome they are. And I got it into this back and forth with Coach Payton. And then also you can fast forward to us breaking down this division and who can come out of it, the Saints, the Bucks. And I said something interesting, and I got a lot of pushback. What I said was the Saints will dominate the regular season, but in the postseason, they'll be the same. And people didn't understand what I was saying. What I was saying was this. When you get in the postseason, teams identify your strengths, your weaknesses, and then they exploit them. Their strength and their identity of this entire offense is number 13, is Michael Thomas. You take him out, you're not only losing your number 1 receiver, you're losing the identity of your team. It's not just plug and play with this team. Because if you brought in Emmanuel Sanders, you mentioned him. If you put him at the X position in Michael Thomas' spot, then who's going to fill the position that they brought him to be? They brought him to be that tag-in guy, to take the top off. This team is built in an interesting way. When everyone's healthy and everyone's there, it works. But if a guy gets nicked up, if a guy goes down, then you're going to start seeing some interesting things. You're going to start seeing people force things, whether it's the play caller, Coach Payton, the quarterback, Drew Brees. Drew Brees, I won't say that he struggled throwing to other receivers, but he's just not comfortable. So this is a huge deal. And this is one of the reasons why I said last week, it's week 1. We need to stop with the overreactions, because you don't know what's going to happen on any given play, on any given Sunday. This is a huge deal. I do think they'll be competitive, but they have a lot of work to do to try to figure out who's going to be that X receiver, that Michael Thomas, that connection, where you have 2 or 3 options on the single option route, and Drew Brees knows exactly what he's going to do. So you got to really take that into consideration when we really talk about how this is set up the next couple of weeks.
You know, Brandon, I think you have a really good point, but I think this is why, and probably more important than what they can do on the offensive side of the ball in this type of situation, this is why they'll continue to be contenders, because they have a very good defense. Marshawn Lattimore, Jack Rabbit on the outside, Malcolm Jenkins in the middle of the field at the safety position. They have a defense that's one of the best defenses they have had in a very long time. And so offensively, they still put up 34 points last week. Michael Thomas only had 3 catches, but he has an impact in just more than catches. So they have to figure out a way to do that. But you're telling me that a Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best running backs in the league can't figure out a different way to do it? You combine that with one of the best defenses in the league? To me, if you can't figure that out, then you have much more problems than losing one of the best receivers in the game in Michael Thomas.
Yeah, all I know is they're on the road to Las Vegas, and this is a hungry team, a team that put up a bunch of points. So they're going to have to score points to win in Las Vegas. You got Green Bay at home, and then you got the Carolina Panthers who just put up 32, Nick. So you got to score points when you look at the next 4 games.
All right, so here's what I know, and this is something, I don't know if I've ever said it on the show before, because we've got 2 of my all-time favorite players, 2 all-time great players, all pros, and Brian Westbrook and Brandon Marshall have been 2 of the 3 people who had spoken this segment. The other person is Jenna Wolfe, and Jenna Wolfe made the best, most important point of anyone. Why was he in the game? And the answer to that is because Sean Payton is a bit of a jerk. Not a bad thing, but he is. That game was over. The Taysom Hill play ended the game. It was 2:19, no timeouts for Tampa, ball inside the 10. You take 3 knees. Tampa gets the ball back with 20 seconds left. They take a knee themselves. So why was he in the game? Because Sean Payton, more than any other coach in the league, Wilds, likes to run up the score. He wanted to hang a 40-burger on Tampa in week 1 because the win wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So he calls a trick play for Taysom Hill that he thought might get him the touchdown. Oh, it just gets us inside the 10. We're going to keep playing. That is outrageous. Yeah. It is, there is no coach's poll at the end of the year to try to get in the BCS National Championship game. There is no margin of victory. This happened in an 11-point game inside the 10, inside of the 2-minute warning when your opponent has no timeouts. It's unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable because football is so brutal, because injuries can happen on any play. And Sean Payton wants some style points. He wanted to hang 40 on Tampa Bay Gronkaneers and Bruce Arians and stick it to them. And now one of their 3 most important players in the entire team, and you guys know this, even when he comes back, high ankle sprain, you're not right for 2 months. At least. This is a lingering problem for him that could set back his whole season. And so Sean Payton, whether they beat the Raiders or not, I honestly don't care. Sean Payton needs to answer for this in the locker room because this was a choice by him, Wilds, he did not have to make.
Okay, so what do you want him to do? When do you want him to? You want him to just take a knee the entire time? I know he was pushing like Kamara trying to get into the end zone and he didn't get it. But guy, I'll throw it to Brandon. Is there a point where you looked at that and be like, he shouldn't be in the game, or you play wire to wire? I always thought it's like, we play wire to wire. It is what it is. You can get hurt on any play. That's not our mentality, or you will get hurt.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be my first time on the show where I could make Nick look stupid by saying something just it was totally from left field. Because when he was talking about, I mean, it was a great take. But when he opened, he was talking about, why is he in the game? Why is he in the game? And you know this, B, because we finished the game. This is not basketball. This isn't like any other sport. We stay out there. Unless we're up by like 30, 40 points, we're out there until like the last seconds of the game. game. Maybe the last 2 plays, you'll see somebody come spare us at the wide receiver position or at the running back position. But you are right. This comes down to situational football. When you have the game in your hands, you don't go down there and try to score. Nick is 100% right here. You don't, and that's exactly, that is Coach Payton's mentality. That's why he's super successful, and that's why there's things like this that comes back and bite him in the butt.
Listen, sometimes when I'm having a great show, I like to leave a segment early. I might do that today. We'll see what happens. What's next for the Clippers after a shocking playoff collapse? That's next. First things first. I'm out. Back here with Chris Broussard talking Game 7. All right, we said it yesterday. Clippers were 3-1 in this series, up 3-1 in the series again, and blew it again. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George combining for just 24 points in this one. Man, Clippers pushed all their chips in this offseason. 3 chances to close Denver out. Could not get it done. Here is Paul George after the game.
Fact of the matter is we didn't live up to that expectation. But I think internally we've always felt this is not a championship or bust year for us. You know, we can only get better the longer we stay together and the more we're around each other. The more chemistry for this group, the better. I think that's really the tale of the tape of the season. We just didn't have enough time together.
And we welcome back in Chris Broussard, our Clippers super fan. Chris Broussard. I'm going to let you marinate in all the joyous hoopla from these 2 guys before I ask how surprised you were. Give it to him, guys. Go ahead. He's ready to receive it.
How does it work? Young analyst, veteran, savvy analyst. Why I don't have a vote? What do you do? Oh, my God.
Out of your system. Let me
say this.
Go ahead, Broussard. Go ahead.
I am going to start off by saying something I have never come close to uttering in the 2.5, 3 years, whatever it is that I've been on this show. Nick was right. I never thought I'd say that on this show, but Nick was right. I got to give him his props. And Brandon, too, for picking Denver, saying they were the better team. I still don't totally agree with that, but clearly they look like it right now. So congratulations to you guys. I'll give you that. All right. Look, I'm surprised. Obviously, I'm shocked.
Okay.
I thought that the Clippers were the best team in the league, not just the best team in this series, the best team in the league. I thought they had 3 closers, and yesterday those 3 closers combined for 31 points on 26% shooting. I thought they had tough defense, and they obviously had no answers for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I thought they had dogs, grit, grind, tenacity, all of that, and they got out-rebounded by a ton. They got beat to seemingly every 50-50 ball. They got out-hustled. And that is the crux of the matter. They lost their identity. Last year, they were the little engine that could. They out-hustled everybody. They were hard-nosed and all that. You drop in 2 stars, and you think, okay, everybody's just going to fit around them. And instead, because the stars weren't there a lot, whether it was missing practices, missing games, and instead, they had no identity. If there was any identity, honestly, it was that they were prima donna. And that is what cost them this series and a legitimate chance to win the championship. As Marcus Morris said a few days ago, they looked at how good they were on paper. They relaxed in that regard. And obviously, by the time they really had to wake up, it was too late, and they're going home.
So all that's obviously correct. Here's a simpler way of saying it. They were a bunch of fraudulent front runners all year. When things were easy, they looked like the best team in basketball. Folks would always, whenever the Clippers went on one of those, they locked down someone on defense for 6 minutes, and Paul George is hitting his patented push-off step-back 3, and Kawhi Leonard is hitting his emotionless 18-footer after motionless 14-footer. My Twitter mentions just full up, Nick, you scared? Nick, you ready to admit they're the best team in basketball? And the answer all along was no, because you've got to do that, not just for 48 minutes, but for 7 games. and they couldn't be bothered to try. They had this. You don't want to know when I was nervous? I will admit. Down 15 in Game 5 after the Clippers had dominated the series in Games 1 and 4. Games 2 and 3 were pretty damn even. And then they folded. Up 17 were the Clippers late in the midway through the third quarter of Game 6. And the Nuggets punched back once, and the Clippers folded. Last night, up 7, biggest game of the year by a country mile. The Nuggets go on a quick little 8-0 run, and the Clippers folded. Doc wears this. Way off P wears this forever because it's long in a line. And Kawhi, listen, folks, we have seen in the last 20 years 3 championship-caliber teams blow 3-1 leads. And the superstars for all of those have worn it. But the other 2 lost Wilds to other championship-caliber teams. The KD and the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead. But at least they did it to the Warriors, who had won a title. The Warriors and Steph blew a 3-1 lead. But at least they did it to the greatest player of all time. These guys blew a 3-1 lead with big leads in the second half of all 3 of the closeout games to a team with 0 combined finals appearances. Paul Millsap's the only dude in the rotation who's even been to a conference finals. Nikola Jokic came on that court playing basketball like he's wearing flip-flops, standing on hot coals, and made Kawhi Leonard look like a second-tier player. That happened. Kawhi disappeared in the fourth quarter of all of these games but one. That happened. Paul George's shot almost blinded one of the small children watching from afar. That happened. Doc Rivers out here saying motivational speeches are for the birds. Well, I don't know who you're going to motivate. Maybe someone on the golf course because you got some extra time this fall. All that happened, Wilds. And
Nick, you know
this
what else
is something
happened?
Yeah, tell me, Brandon. Tell me.
You're just going to let Chris off the hook for trying to hedge his bet? How he tried to change his picks? Or are you just going to let him off?
I didn't hedge my bet. I didn't hedge my bet.
Brandon,
I was just being honest.
Wilds, go.
I had him winning last night.
Look, Jamal Murray after the game was like, no one believed in us. Shaq didn't believe in us.
Yeah.
Zach Lowe got a drive-by shot from poor Jamal Murray. But it got worse. Look at this list of people that picked the Clippers. Draymond, KD, Jamal, Crawford, Matt Barnes, Jalen Wilbon, T-Mac, and Paul Pierce. But there was one person on this panel, Jenna, just one, that had the courage, the bravery, the tenacity, and the integrity to utter 4 little words. Off the Clippers. And that's why Chris Broussard called this. He saw this from a mile away. He called it. Congratulations, Broussard. I knew the Clippers didn't have it when you called it yesterday, so bravo. Big win for you today.
I'm glad you of all the people on this panel recognized it, Wilds. I had the guts to come out and say it. But look, let me say this, because obviously Nick is taking major shots at Kawhi, and that's fair because Kawhi just didn't deliver. Here's what I'll say, though, and this goes into what Paul George said as far as this is not it, okay? It wasn't championship or bust. Of course, they wanted to win the championship. They thought they could win the championship. But this team is together. They're going to lose Montrezl Harrell, perhaps, and Marcus Morris. But they'll be back. They'll be humbled. They'll be motivated. I doubt you'll see as much load management. And they will be the better team for it. But here's what I'm saying. Kawhi Leonard, he faded. Hold on, Kawhi faded, right? We've seen who's had moments like this. Magic Johnson, tragic in 1984. Isaiah Thomas throwing the pass away to Larry Bird in 1987. LeBron James against Dallas in 2011. Larry Bird in his first finals, 8 points, 12 points in 3 games.
Those are the finals. That's in the finals.
But it's still...
It don't happen in the second round, bro.
Hold on, no. Kawhi Leonard did not.
This is why. No, Chris.
Guys did. He can bounce back. He can learn from it and bounce back. That's all I'm saying.
Chris, Chris, I see why you've been on TV so long. You just use your journalism degree to flip this whole narrative and flip the whole story. Come on, man. What Paul George said in his press conference after game was ridiculous. That is not the mindset you want from your superstar player. A guy that left one team and went to another team and came to another team for a championship. When is the best time to win a championship? Look in the basketball. Look in the basketball world right now. Golden State Warriors, they're depleted. The LA Lakers, they're in the same boat as the Clippers. This is their first year together. AD's first year there. And then when you go to the East, everybody is saying, and you probably one of these guys too, I can probably pull it out of the archives. Oh, the East is so weak. So when is the best time to win a championship?
No, of course. I know they wanted to win it this year. I agree with you there. But you guys are acting like they're old. Like they can't come back next year. Like they have no chance. This was it. It's not championship or bust. No. You don't think they're going to be humbled next year? You don't think they're going to be motivated? You don't think they're going to take the regular season seriously? Really?
It's harder. I'm just saying as a competitor.
I don't. Here's what I think. Here's what I think, Broussard. Broussard, here's what I think. I think they're stuck. I think, and there was someone who said at the beginning of the year, this is an odd-fitting roster. You got a bunch of specialists. You got a great defensive point guard who stinks on offense and a great offensive guard who stinks on defense. You got a great offensive big man who doesn't rebound for his position and can't play D in Montrezl Harrell. You got a guy in Zubac who is the most over-adulated 7-point-a-game player I've ever seen in my life. You have no rim protector in a conference where you got to get through Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic evidently as well. And you got a guy in Kawhi who, despite the fact that he's the most load-managed player we've ever seen, wore down entirely in the second half of these games, who is not built for every other night 40-plus minutes. That's what you've got. And by the way, they're not in it for the long haul. Kawhi and Paul George could have signed 4-year deals. They could have signed 3+1s. They signed 2+1s, meaning you only have one guaranteed year left with them because they wanted to give themselves an emergency hatch parachute. There's no other reason for it. And if this isn't enough to make at least one of them consider pulling that parachute, then nothing will be. But I hope they run it back. I hope they keep running it back, and in 2024, we can talk about on paper how great this fraudulent team is. Because they've never looked like a championship team, Jenna. Never.
But here's my question. How much responsibility falls on that guy right there? Doc Rivers was honest after the game, taking the blame for the Clippers' collapse. Take a listen to what he had to say.
No, we didn't meet him. That's the bottom line. I'm the coach, and I'll take any blame for it. But we didn't meet our expectations, clearly. Because we had, in my opinion, we'd still be playing.
Broussard, how much of this do you put on Doc, and does he stick around, or is that it for him after, having this happen to him again, down 3-1? Up 3-1 and then losing series.
I don't think a lot of media are going to say this because Doc is great with the media, and Doc is a great guy. Everybody loves Doc. I like him a lot. But let's face it, he was honest, so I'm going to be honest. He deserves a ton of the blame. You mentioned now 3 times his teams have collapsed, having 3-1 leads. You look at this series, they made no major adjustments of any consequence. His players were fatigued. He even said it after the game that they had guys were asking out, well, who's that to blame on? The coach. Get your guys in shape. Everybody was in the bubble. Everybody was off 4 months. Everybody had the same circumstances. Get your guys in shape. They weren't motivated. They had no spirit. They had no chemistry. They didn't execute properly. That is all on the coach. Doc, I said it in the first round. He was outcoached by Rick Carlisle, and he was outcoached by Mike Malone. This is a lot on Doc Rivers. And I'm not saying you definitively fire him, but they have got to look closely at this situation because the successor could be sitting right there on your bench in Tyronn Lue, and obviously other teams want him. So they got to figure this out because Doc is underachieved. He underachieved with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. I know they had a few injuries in the playoffs, but still, and he underachieved this year. When I got better guys than you got and you beat me, it's on me as the coach.
Listen, I would want Chris Broussard, if something were to happen to me, I'd be great with Chris Broussard raising my kids. I want Chris Broussard to give me broadcasting advice. There's a lot of things I love and respect about Chris Broussard. I don't want him picking my NBA Finals, evidently. I feel the same way about Doc Rivers. I love him as a man. I want Doc Rivers to be a leader, to give motivational speeches, to help take a team from the brink, from the depths of a horrible racist owner and bring them through it to the other side. I don't want Doc Rivers to coach a team that has championship aspirations, unless Kevin Garnett's coming with him, unless one of the greatest leaders in NBA history is alongside him, because without Kevin Garnett, all we've seen Doc Rivers teams do is underachieve in the biggest spots, blow 3-1 or 3-2 leads, which he's now done 6 times, 3-3-1, 3 times 3-2, and at the end of the year, all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we'll get them next year. Running out of next year's. Luckily, there's a lot of gorgeous golf courses in Los Angeles, and I'll have some more time on them coming up, Jenna.
Can I be the Doc defender? This 3-1 lead thing. Okay. First of all, the Magic Pistons series was an 8-1 series. They weren't supposed to win that. And it's like the way that it played out, I get it. But like that was an 8-1. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But here's another take on Doc's performance over this bubble. Maybe he knew all along this team doesn't have it. This team doesn't have. I've seen a championship team. I've coached a championship team. This team doesn't have it. And I'm not going to go out there and lie to you. We've seen it, and when they did the little mics up, he's like, we're emotionally weak. We need to stay in the game. I don't know if it's fair, Broussard, to tell professional athletes to come in shape. Like, what does Doc got to be like Joe Judge and the Giants and telling people to run laps? That's not Doc Rivers' job. Like, I think he looks.
Is it his job to not blow 19-point second-half leads? Wilds, is it his job to not blow 19-point second-half leads? Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, let me piggyback off of Wilds, right? Because I think Antoine did a great job early in the show walking us through the mindset of this team. Remember what he said. He said they were one of the only teams that said they didn't want to return. They were one of the only teams that said they didn't want to come to the bubble. And then you had a couple players that had family issues and really was in and out of the bubble. So when you look at the mindset of this team, they weren't ready to play. It didn't seem like they wanted to play. And when you hear those comments about a player not being in shape and not being able to play them minutes, to me that's more on the player than it is the coach. Like, they took this quarantine thing really too serious. Like, we saw Giannis turn his living room into his workout training facility. So what excuse do they have? There's no excuse as a player to not come back to play in shape. That is 100% on these guys. And yes, Doc needs to take blame. He needs to take ownership because it's his team. But at the end of the day, these players got to be pros. Maybe in high school, maybe in college, but not at this level. Right. These guys got to be in shape.
All right, we got to take a break. The conversation continues on the other side. Chris Broussard, our condolences, and thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Much more First Things First, and it's Clippers post-mortem momentum on the other side.
One more thing for Broussard.
Sunday on Fox, Dak and Zeke leading the Cowboys in their home opener against Matt Ryan and the Falcons. Or you may see Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners taking on the Jets. Jets. All the NFL action kicking off 1 Eastern. Check local listings for the games in your area or watch it on the Fox Sports app. Back to our top story this morning. The demise of the LA Clippers, up 3-1 in yet another series and losing yet another series. Nuggets take Game 7. They move on to the Western Conference Finals. First time since 2009 when they played the Lakers, by the way. Lou Williams said after the game, "We had the talent to do this. We just didn't have the chemistry." So telling. All right, Nick, what do you think this means for Kawhi and the Clippers now?
Well, listen, Jenna. The broadcast, focused on the excellence of the Nuggets, and I'm glad they did because someone needs to, the game broadcast. I'm going to focus on the just embarrassment for the Clippers here. And Doc, it's his third blown 3-1 lead. He's amazingly done that in 3 different decades. That'll never be done again. Obviously, playoff P just exists in Gatorade commercials. From here on out, I think he's way off P in the playoffs. Lou Williams, the best he looked post-quarantine was at Magic City. Montrezl Harrell probably cost himself $40 million in free agency. Marcus Morris is still looking for ankles to step on. All those things are true. Here's what's also true. Kawhi Leonard got absolutely, prematurely, irrationally, and unnecessarily anointed as a LeBron James rival, peer, and in some circles, as the best player in basketball. I never once bought into it. But if you are someone who did even entertained that possibility, then it is incumbent upon you to keep the energy you would have for LeBron if he ever had this type of disgraceful 3-1 series lead blown, Game 7 performance, fourth quarters throughout the series on his resume. Keep that for the guy who shot a commercial this summer declaring, wearing his New Balances, that this is his city. Kawhi Leonard, who throughout the series was bad in the second half and unspeakably bad in the fourth quarter. Kawhi Leonard, who is the best player on a team, who was up 15 in the second half of a closeout game, blew it. Up 17 in the second half of a closeout game, blew it. And then last night was 1 for 11 in the second half for 2 points. That's him in the series in the second half. How about the fourth quarters? Because it gets worse. 7 games in this series, 3 of them goose eggs in the fourth quarters. It wasn't getting to the line, couldn't get to his spots, couldn't make shots, and God knows couldn't slow down the Nuggets offense for a guy I'm told is the best perimeter defender since Scottie Pippen. So Kawhi Leonard is a great player. No one denies it. But for great players, these types of performances linger on their resumes forever. It's been a decade, and people still bring up LeBron's 2011 finals. But at least that happened in the finals against an all-time great in Dirk. Not in the second round against Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Jeremy Grant. This is... It wasn't wild. It wouldn't have been unacceptable for the Clippers to not win the title this year. The Lakers are better than them. But for them to not get there when the entire country, except for one kind of odd-looking television analyst, picked them to at least make the conference finals, that is a blight on all resumes involved, none bigger than Kawhi's.
You know, I appreciate your level-headed analysis. I think emotions run high, and after the game, we saw that spill over to the internet. There were some terrible things written. Dave McMenamin wrote, "The sweet taste of victory, the lemon pepper taste of defeat." Come on, Dave. Come on. TJ at Twitter wrote, "I'm going to push back my barber appointment tomorrow. Can't trust any Clippers right now." Oh, come on, TJ. Your barber had nothing to do with this. Poor Vince Staples, who was a Clipper fan. Kawhi going to text the whole team while they're sitting in the locker room. Oh, Vince, come on. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to give you real, hardcore basketball analysis. So I actually want to show some tweets that I think get down to the more nuanced analysis of the game. So the first one's from NBA Stats. You know, the Joker, first to tally 20-plus rebounds in a playoff game since Kevin Garnett. That's a good one. Another one to think about, advancing the conference finals despite having a point differential of -21. Interesting, interesting. And then we have this one, another level-headed analysis here. Just ha from our own Nick Wright. So take your victory lap, buddy. You called it. Seer of Seers. Take this one here. All your flowers. If we were on a real set, I'd be showering you with roses. Like I'd put one of those big Kentucky Derby roses that they put on the horses and give it to you right now.
Well, I appreciate that. Brandon, listen. You called that the Nuggets were the better team before the series. Yep. I had the Clippers being as front-running, overrated, non-championship contenders before the season. It is delightful that the only other person that picked this series correct is the newest partner that we have on this show. Go ahead, Brandon.
It speaks a lot to our chemistry already, buddy. But you said that August 17th, 2019. Like, what did you see? But before you even answer that question, Nick, I want to just highlight how passionate you are about what you said. You're so passionate about Kawhi Leonard being compared to LeBron James. You're so passionate about how this team is a fraud and you hate load management. But what did you see back on August 17, 2019 that called this?
That it was that the roster didn't make sense. They didn't have a rim protector. They had a bunch of designated hitters. Patrick Beverley's a one-way player on defense. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell are one-way players on offense. And everyone kept acting like, well, I mean, at the very least, they have the trump card that is the unbeatable Kawhi Leonard. Why?
Yeah.
He had an unbelievable second round against the Sixers and then beat a wildly depleted Warriors team last year. Like, that's the reason? Yeah. Because he beat Steph Curry and Patty McCaw at the end? Like, that's why we're just going to give him the all benefit of the doubt? And I've seen way off P for the last decade. His playoff pinnacle was when he dapped up LeBron at midcourt when he was with the Pacers after the end of a third quarter and was in, like, year 3. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, but what about that the Nuggets were just the better team? Why are we overlooking that point? Like, you did a good job of really walking us through the past year, but coming into this series, if you really look at it, they were the better team. They had no answer for Jokic. Jokic was able to generate beautiful shots and wide open shots for guys on his team like Millsap and Grant and Harris, and even Porter came in and sparked them when needed. But moving forward, like pushing the conversation forward, if I'm the Clippers, this is what I do. I don't panic. Just take it like a man. Like, you lost fair and square. You lost. All right, there's no, like, let's not chase the headlines. Oh, should we fire Doc? Is it Kawhi's fault? Is it playoff P's fault? Just take it like a man. You lost.
Yeah.
Nick,
I
Nick
agree, Brandon.
like
Jenna, you know what the Clippers should do? You know what, Jenna, you know what they should do next year? Change nothing. It'll be great. I'll be right back here.
Run it off back. So it'll be the Nuggets and the other LA team in the Western Conference.